Well, hello everybody, it's Ginger here and welcome back to another one of my sketching sessions. As you can see, I have been up to some pumpkin painting. I am getting into the fall mood. It is the season for redheads, and redheads I am, so this is the season for me. I absolutely love the colours this season. All the reds, oranges and golds are right up my alley. So I've been doing a lot of pumpkin sketching, painting at the moment, ready for various different pastel paintings. And I've got a couple of 10" by 10" easy pastel paintings coming up for you guys in the videos in the next couple of weeks. Starting with the first one from that sketch this week, hopefully midweek, possibly Wednesday, Thursday. So look out for that one coming up. So these are the two that I did over the weekend. As you can hear, I'm a bit croaky, so I'm still not well at the moment. And we are going to be working on these two pages, and we're just going to do another quick one today, just because I don't have a lot of time, and accordingly I'm cooking dinner tonight. And we're having teriyaki salmon and pickled cucumber strips, so I need to prepare for that accordingly, because I'm not a great cook. I have to follow instructions to the letter, unfortunately. So let us get started. So we've got a simple composition. You guys can't see the image. I'm not using streaming software, so I can't have image and image, but it's basically a small setup of some mini squashes, gourds, pumpkins, whatever you want to call them, set up on a little wooden board. It has a big pumpkin in the background that's a little bit blurred out, so I'm just going to ignore that. And I want to focus on the smaller pumpkins, which are right at the front. So I'm going to kind of work out how I want my sketch by painting in the base colours of the pumpkins first. And we've got some really gorgeous colours going on. So I'm going to go for quite a nice mid-orange first and mark out the first one of these pumpkins. So I'm going to do the front four, ignore the smaller back one and the bigger back one. So if we do that one there, then this one's just off center. So this is the himi-gouache, if you want to know. That's this set on the side here. It's fairly versatile, not particularly light fast, but it is great for these sketching sessions where I want to get colour down quickly without having to really think about it or mix colours. So I try not to mix colours when I'm working with this and just use what I've got. It forces me to really study tonal value a lot more, because I'm having to think more about what alternatives I can use rather than what's there, which is fine, but it really does make you think. Right, which direction do we want to go into? We want a yellow. I want it to have a slight, it's quite a, almost not quite a lemon yellow, but the pumpkins in the image are quite lemon yellow, so they're more on the blue side rather than the orange side. So we've now got a little one behind it here. Should I say a little one? I mean a big one. Let's make that significantly bigger. Who doesn't like good old pumpkins? Right, now let's, how far down? It's quite, yeah, a little bit bigger than this orange one, but you can't see a lot of it. So that's the yellow one there. I'm gonna just pop in some color, basic color for the board, just because I want to establish that before I work out what I'm doing with the other two pumpkins. So you can't really see that, but that comes pretty much all the way down to there. And this one's pretty much sitting on the edge, so we're just going to pull that down to just in front of it. So I try to keep the base colours fairly light. I don't want to have to work too hard. As this is the hemi-gouache, it basically will reactivate with water, which means it will also reactivate with itself, which can cause some interesting effects when you're not paying attention. So that's where we want the board to stop, just there. And it's got a slight angle. I'm just going to add a little bit of dark brush and just box in this bit here. And we want it to come along to about here before we put in the other pumpkin that's just in front of them. So just there. I'm just moving it over slightly just because I want it a bit more centered. So these are off center, but I want this one to be a little bit more centered and also past the edge of this board. And that just helps create continuity and connectivity between the items that we've got. So it just touches up and over into the board there before coming down and round. And this one disappears off the page, so I'm not too fussed about its shape or anything at the moment. It can just hang fire there. It's not the best placement, I have to say. It's definitely an interesting reference photo. It's kind of nice in one way, the reference photo, and also kind of not. Right, we have another smaller yellow pumpkin gourd squash. Let's call it a squash, shall we? We'll call it a squash. And we will, where do we want to put this? To one side, we'll just pop it here. It's a little lower down, so we'll try and keep that low. So it's there. This is always the boring bit of a painting, is just mapping out and blocking out colours, and then it starts to get interesting when you start getting highlights and shadows in. Should have brought one of my clips with me to hold the page down, but nope. It will eventually bend over as it gets more and more weighted down with the water. Right, I want a kind of grey colour. It's really light colour for the base here, and it disappears back to a darker grey patterned kind of background. So I think, yeah, I'm gonna bring that horizon line down where it changes, just because I'm not doing the rest of this board. So I want to be able to bring that horizon line down. So I'm going to bring it down to here. So that's where the horizon line is. Always try to use plenty of water. And for those of you that can see, this palette is fairly dried out. I keep it fairly dry so that it doesn't mold. And there are ways. I've got a travel palette which I take with me, and that stays fairly wet because it's used quite often. And it could mold, and there are ways to keep mold. When I finish using it, I usually spray it down with alcohol. I keep a little bit of rubbing alcohol in a tiny spray bottle that used to be catnip. I have another one which I use for my working on the big paintings, and I just keep some rubbing alcohol in that when I'm out and about with the other palette, and I spray that palette down when I'm finished using it, and that just makes sure that it doesn't grow mold in between uses, which, yes, this type of gouache does have a tendency to do that. So we're just going to get these background layers in, which is going to really help shape up and give a little bit of dimension to this, because the upper horizon is darker. It's a darker grey, so it will provide some somewhat immediate interest. Come on, sit. It's not the first time I have got this paint all over my fingers. Thankfully it's only mildly toxic. Well, shouldn't be toxic. I don't think it is toxic. But you never really know with paints like these when they're made industrially whether or not, just because they don't have any toxicity in their components, whether or not they're actually made in a factory where they could be contaminated with other ones, and that is often more likely, unfortunately. So that's the base colour down. So we're going to use a darker grey, which is just up here. I'm just going to get that wet, and then we will get some of that down, and that will create a little bit of difference with this horizon line. You can see straight away. Now this is just basically colour blocking, so I'm just painting out the basic shapes in mid-tone, and then working over that with the darks and highlights. It's just a nice easy way and a quick way to be able to get toning and shading without having to really work too hard for it. The idea is not to really have to sit here and get fiddly with these sorts of paintings. It's more to do with looking at composition, looking at colour, looking at where you're putting colours, where one particular blob of colour will actually change or enhance one of the objects. And when it comes to still lifes like this, that's really easily done, but it can also end in disaster if you're not really being very careful with where you're putting your highlights and your shadows. You can turn something 3D into a bit of a monster. And the advantage of this kit, so this is the 48 way colour. I'm going to call them half pans, so hopefully that kind of makes sense for most of you. And that gives me a fair old amount of colour. I have already said to my husband, I want one of two things for Christmas. One is very expensive and one is not. I need to replace my easel. The back bracing leg is slowly going on it, and for the bigger pieces I use a bigger board, and the weight of that's just driving that leg out of shape on the hinge. So I could do with a Studio H easel, which will be more stable, and also one on wheels, so that A, it doesn't scratch the floor, and B, I can move it round easier. So that's the expensive option, and the non-expensive option is to buy me the full size set of this, which I think is the 120 odd. So yeah, really wanting to get the bigger set of this so that it's a bit easier to have a few more colours and just kind of, you know, enjoy it. So remember, if you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments below. I am keeping an eye on the chat. Now, shall we start getting some other shapes in? Let's go for things like this chopping board. So it's darker at the bottom here, but it has got more of a golden tone to it. So let's bring this in. You can see that well, you guys can't, but I can, that when the photographer set this still life up, that it is in a studio setup with a light box, and the result of that is that the shadows are very much underneath each of the fruit rather than in any direction, and especially with the wooden chopping board that they're sitting on as well, it means that there isn't really much to go on, which is okay, but at the same time I love playing with light and shadow, so it's a little annoying, but it is what it is. This is the one we're using for today. If you guys enjoy these, I might do a few more throughout the next couple of weeks, so you can all enjoy watching me paint pumpkins. There's worse things I could be doing than painting pumpkins. I'm sure you will all agree. Right, let's straighten that edge up there. So that's the top of the board there. And I think what I'll do is I'll come in with a slightly darker colour and give that some lines. It's going the grain of the chopping board's going the opposite direction to the fruit, which is really great actually, because that's what you want to kind of do, is you want to be able to have two coinciding directions. So if you've got one going diagonal, you either want one going straight up or across in order to kind of connect with that and keep a direction. And it also then helps get your eye line going in the direction you want to go. In this case, with this one, I want people to focus diagonally up onto these two pumpkins. So that's what we're kind of going for. The advantage to that is we have a diagonal line going this way, which is the main line of sight, but the grain on the chopping board that these two are sitting on actually goes vertically, goes that way away from us. So we've got that automatic, not only kind of in, but also up, which then should coincide here, directly where these two are, right in the middle. And hopefully that will help make this look a bit more interesting. So the stem on this one is sitting in a wee bit. I notice that these pumpkins, squashes, whatever they are sunken in the middle. Tend to see a lot more in squashes maybe, not sure. So we are coming up on this one. It's not got massively long stalk. It's still enough. I need to be thinking about this one a bit more and just making sure that I've got the shape, because I don't want to do too much work over the top of this one. It's nice just to be able to kind of get it in there and get shape. The yellow one next to it's got a really long wonky stalk. The interesting thing about it is that means that's going to put it across the top of the page and off the page, which actually I think is going to be really good, because we've already got pumpkins touching the edges of two sides of the pages. So to have one also touch at the top, in fact 1, 2, 3, oh yeah, that would be all sides. The pumpkins would be touching all sides of the page, which is probably going to drive some sort of painting master absolutely crazy, but if used in the right context, it is actually very good. And it is a way of showing to the viewer that there is more beyond what you're seeing. So obviously we're not seeing the full size of this pumpkin, not seeing the bottom of that pumpkin, we're not seeing the other edge of that pumpkin, and that's deliberate. That's there to make you think about what could be outside of what you're seeing framed in this painting. So for those joining us today, we are just doing some full sketches. I've done a number of these already, and the plan is to use these to do 10 by 10 inch square pastel paintings, nice and easy ones that anybody can join along with and just have some fun. Basically, it's fall, it's the season of beautiful colours. It is not the season of that type. That is not for a number of months yet, and that is going to remain unnamed and kept in the dark until it is retrieved from the attic and brought out we're just going to bring this stalk up. It goes to about halfway up here, but it's kind of almost pointing at that one, so I'm going to maybe bring it a little bit more sideways, just because I don't want it directly in line with that. I want it just slightly off. Okay, so that's the basic color blocking down, which is great. Now we're going to start bringing in a little bit more color. Starting with, what should we do first? We'll start with our yellow orange and just add a little bit more color and highlight. And this is where we start changing the depth of these pumpkins. This is where we start bringing in a little bit of light and a little bit of shade. So you see this side is a lot more yellow. There's a bit more light on this side, and it does kind of curve in. So you try to want to get the paint to follow, and when I'm using my pastels, I want to do the same. The shape that you drag the pastel in, it will show. So you want to try and make sure that that helps create the curves. Right, where are we going next? Now we've got this one. See, this is the bit that kind of starts making it look really odd. I always look at this bit and go, is that right? Have I done that right? But yeah, usually it's just that this is always the bit that confuses everybody. So put that in there. This then, I don't want to widen that. I want to just bring that slightly more like that. I don't know how much of that colour you can see. It's a bit, it's not very easy to see that colour. It comes across before it then highlights just a touch of a section, so there'll be a line going that way, and then it curls up and then it comes down, highlighting the outer edge of the next segment there. Now there is another segment here, but like I said, that one's really heavily in shadow. So I suspect that the setup had lights from each side pointing in, and possibly, yeah, with the shadows being really underneath, I'm going to say that also some nice top lighting, which has given us a really nice reference photo to work from, but at the same time kind of makes the lighting just a little bit, dare I say it, boring. It's a little boring. But it's no fault of the photographer, because for the photographer they've achieved what they wanted. But for me, it just lacks imagination, so I have to really work hard to create enough interest. Right, now this colour has got a nice orange tint to it, and it's great because it's great for use for the lines on the squashes that are the more yellow ones. So it is more yellow at the top, but as it comes down and widens out, it becomes more orange. Becomes quite an orange stripe at the bottom here, so I'll pop that one there, and the same there. And there is some shadowing here, so we will make sure we get some of that in, so that you can see that one's just in front of this one. And then it's got some more lines as it comes a segment, another segment there, coming down. One on this side is more yellow and has very little orange in it, but I'm going to put the orange in first, because once I put the yellow over the top and it starts mixing, it will create more of what we're looking for. I'm a little annoyed by this shape here, trying to work out what I want to do with it. It does kind of bow. I wonder if I bring this down, this might solve my problem. if I bring this down, reshape this bottom section here, it might make a bit more sense to somebody. Possibly not, but we'll see. And I want to get the nice gold colour, which will be quite a neutral colour. It'll also be quite dark. So watch when I put this on. This is going to be quite a dark colour compared to the other colours that are already on. It follows this line here as it comes down. And we want to curve that out a bit more just to give it a little bit more shape as it cuts underneath and behind that one. And the same here. And then there's actually quite a large section, one here, that has none of the orange in at all, but it has quite a lot of this shadow there. And then this one has shadow on the upper edge at the top, and then at the bottom edge coming down like that. And that, I think, is where we will reshape the bottom of this just ever so slightly. That's a bit better. Hopefully that's going to make a little bit more sense now. And then from the stalk out, it's got a lot of shadows, and that's because the stalk has sunk in. I don't know where my English has gone. Sunken in. I don't know why, but almost pretty much all of the pumpkins are like that. So if anyone's got an idea on why it does that specifically, feel free to say. Any horticultural experts in the chat? This one's got a nice shadow here. That's actually shadow caused by the stem, and it's coming out that way. So we're just picking up some of the brown from the stalk and pulling it down like that. Right, where are we going now? Most of that one is now going to be the lemon yellow and white, so we're going to work on this one here, come back to our gold. I could use a more neutral colour, but actually I want to use this because I want to keep some of the warmth in this. There's quite a section here, so there's a line almost dead centre, so we're going to shift that off slightly because I don't want that directly in the centre. And then it's got quite a shadow here, so we're just going to dump that shadow there and shadow there, and then another one coming out and round here. They're kind of wider at the apex of the bulge out, and then narrow and taper as they come down. Really nice shadow shape there. As we come to another line, it kind of disappears going that way. There's actually another line here. I'm going to just exaggerate the shape of this here just ever so slightly. And I said I wasn't happy with how high up this pumpkin was, so I'm just bringing it up a wee bit. For those of you that are not fluent in Scottish, a wee bit means a little bit. Wee as in little. bring that curve up there, and then it comes in and down towards the stalk. And the same, this one's got another really interesting shadow come down there. I'm just going to pick up some of that brown, just let that spread into the gold colour. It just helps. It's also got like almost like there's another line here. Really fine though, there. So you guys should be starting to be able to see the kind of shapes coming out of these now. And once we start getting the shadows in, it'll be a lot better. Especially this one, because you can't really see what I've done with that one because of the colour, but as it dries a bit more it will lighten slightly more and you'll be able to see it. This one doesn't have a lot of anything, which is really frustrating because the gold is too much. So what do I really want to do here? No, we're going to stick with the gold. I'm just going to water it down a wee bit more. And try not to use too much of it here. Because there is some shadowing, but this one's like a really... just doesn't have as much character as its other siblings. We're calling them siblings now. Pumpkins have siblings. Or squashes. Still don't know what they are. And again, we have all this shadowing around the stem, stalk, and that's because it's lower down. This I need to bring around like that. That's one segment. So you've got the shadow is where the segment bulges in the middle, so that's where you would get your light section in the middle, and then it would fade out either side to a dark section, which is where the crease, the valley is, before it then lightens as it comes up the other side. It's really nice working with shapes like this because actually it's a really simple concept, but it works unbelievably well. Righty-ho. What do I want to do now? Should we do some more work on this one? We'll add some more yellow in, but this time we'll go quite a warm yellow. It has got quite a light section on this side. Now this is the same yellow as what I put down for the base for the other yellow pumpkins. So you should see it almost immediately. There it is. And I am using the Himi gouache, and it is obviously water activatable. Is that a word? Have I just made a word up? Which basically means that when I layer it over the top of each other, it has a tendency for picking itself up. But that actually is quite handy for what we're doing. So I'm just letting it mix, create this beautiful kind of yellow section coming down. Like that, and the same here. This will dry lighter, so you'll see more of it as it dries. This is basically where the highlights tend to be. And it comes almost all the way down there. And then it gets a bit darker, so we're going to head into one of the darker colours. I'm just trying to think, how dark do I want it to go? I've just added a tiny amount of red because this is where the other segment is that you can't see very well. But it puts a really nice darker tone there and there. There's a little bit of the darker colour up here, and then it curves round like that. This obviously is darker right at the edge. This is also darker right at the edge. And here as well. And then it comes up between these two. Here, like that. And then there's some darkening of it around that one, and also where that line is there. A tiny bit here, right in the bottom corner of that segment. I don't know how much I really want that to show up though, but I'll put it in. It'll just add. Right, that's looking suitably interesting. We won't go in with a darker colour, but we will start getting in. Which one are we going to get in? I want to go lighter with this. With these, so we're going to wet up quite a pale colour. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed it, or if any of you used the Himmies before, how transparent certain colours are. Like my greens, wonderful, and there are actually a couple of greens in here that I've added to the kit, so I'm trying to think which one, that one and that one are actually colours I've added. They are, what have I forgotten? Are they Winsor & Newton? I think. Oh no, they're Arteza. So these are two Arteza colours, which I made up and cleaned the pots out of. They were greens. Cleaned pots out of and put them in because I wanted less of the kind of fluorescent greens and more of the kind of earthy Scottish tone blue greens. So it was quite handy just to swap those out. In theory, I could just strip the palette out completely. There is a number of colours in here I don't use very often at all. And it would be nice to kind of use a little bit more of the colours sometimes, but it's hard. I know it's hard. This goes down quite far. I haven't got the lemon yellow in yet, so... That's where the light kind of stops on that one. And it generally focuses a lot more on this side, and the same with these two, is the light is very much on this side, although there is lights being picked up on the other side, just not quite as intense. keep these curves because we want the pumpkins to really have that shape of coming in. Exaggerate that round shape at the back there. Grab a little bit more of this. I'm trying to keep it thick just because the yellows tend to be the most transparent in this set, so I want to have to keep this one quite thick, or it literally just is so transparent you might just not have bothered. That's coming out that way. I'm just looking for, as I work through each section, just looking for where this colour is on each one. Again, this one comes in and down. There's more yellow on the inside, so we're going to keep that curved and down. Same with this one. It's not as bright, but it is there, so we'll keep it fairly transparent because it will allow that colour to show through underneath, and it will just make it slightly darker than where it is lighter in other places. This is the one that's got a line down the middle, but it's got tiny highlight to that line, so we want to just bring that down like that. That's the highlight to that line. And this actually spreads a bit more down than I had it. My question is, do I want to expand that out? Yes, I do. I just want it a bit more curved. So for those of you who have just joined, welcome to my channel. My name is Ginger and I am a landscape artist based in the Highlands of Scotland, and I mostly work in soft pastel and charcoal and gouache in my sketches. I do a fair amount of outdoor sketching, and this year with the investment of my new French easel, I am hoping to, as we start to go into winter, get out a little bit with it, and then hopefully next spring get out a lot more with it and have some fun with a lot of plein air painting and just being able to get out and take you guys with me, which will be fun. It's always an adventure living in Scotland because you're never 100% what you're going to see, and the sort of challenges that then presents painting a landscape like we have up here, which is not only consistently changing every 5 minutes, but also throwing everything at you, from hail to windstorms to lightning to thunder to flying trampolines. It's one of my favourites, having to duck out the way of one of those. Don't really see many cats and dogs raining in Scotland, just trampolines. But it does present quite the challenge for an outdoor painter. So like I said, I've got a new setup, a sturdier easel and some weights, and that should really help. Having a little bit more support and being able to maybe spend a bit more time battling the elements, which is always a favourite pastime of every Scottish artist. I don't know why, somebody said to me the other day that actually when they watch Scottish artists paint, they seem to thrive the worse the weather gets. Honestly, the truth is, it's not that we're thriving, it's just that we're so cold, we're completely numb, and therefore we don't feel anything. We stop feeling. That's probably why. It's nothing to do with bravery. Might be a large amount of stupidity. Right, that's looking a little better. Starting to get a little bit more kind of shape and colour into these. We haven't really done much with the shadows yet, so, and the absolute highlights, and that's usually when it starts getting a bit more fun, or at least interesting anyway. Now this might be a little too light for what I wanted on this pumpkin, so I might have to use this as the base highlight for the minute, and then see how it goes once that's dry. Because the problem with the gouache is it can either dry lighter or it can dry darker, depending on the paper type you're using and what brand. Now generally it tends to dry darker, however the paper that I'm actually using here and what this sketchbook is actually made out of is pastel paper. Is the, remember this, I think it's the Daleroni Ingress paper, and Ingress is a specific type of paper used mostly with charcoal, sketch and soft pastel artists, just because it has a particular pattern. I don't think you guys might be able to see it. It's got a kind of diamond imprint, and it's part of the mold where it's printed. And it's used to be able to, it creates, the paper itself, if you kind of get it under a magnifying glass, the paper itself looks almost slightly furry, and the texture itself is actually quite well indented into the paper, but that allows for it to capture and hold that pigment, which is what you need as a pastel artist. But at the same time, unless if you're an absolute beginner, it's not a paper that I would generally recommend to a lot of those that follow my channel for beginners. It takes a little bit of know-how to know how to work with it and then be able to actually achieve what you want to achieve. The problem with it is it doesn't hold that many layers. So if you're not used to working with this type of paper, and you don't fully know the softness of your pastels and the hardness of your pastels and how many layers each one's more likely to put down, and you can quickly succumb to muddying your work by putting too much pastel down, even if you were trying to stick to every rule under the sun. And because there's so many different rules when using pastels, and about the different types and the different hardnesses and the different papers, it can be a real minefield for those getting started. I know I wasn't taught, I'm self-taught from YouTube, good old YouTube, and honestly, yeah, it was unbelievably difficult. It's taken me a long time to be able to get to where I am now, where I can confidently use pastels in a way that really kind of works. But at the same time, gosh, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things, I think, sometimes, why did I decide to use a dry medium that's a nightmare? And the answer is, I actually don't know. Right, I'm just making a neutral grey-brown, which I want to just add some of the grain of this board in. So I'm just very lightly dragging my brush. What will happen is the lighter colour that's underneath will probably form the majority of the actual grain, because the grain tends to be lighter. But it's easier to paint the darker sections in over the top than it is to paint the lighter grain over the top of the darker. Because that way, if you make mistakes, it doesn't matter. You can just leave a bigger gap. And it will look a bit messy for the minute, It will dry lighter, this one. This brown dries lighter. And this is a little bit finickier than I wanted to do. I wasn't really planning on doing this much kind of detail, but that's fine. It looks good. Right. That needs to dry before I do anything else to it. So let's use this while we've got it to get a little bit of detail onto some of these stalks. So this is a kind of brown mauve neutral colour, but it's great for getting minor details on these stalks without really worrying about how much detail you want to get on it. I've left the paint quite wet, so it's sitting just on top of the surface. Try not to let it run everywhere, but it'll create interesting texture on these stalks where there's just slightly lighter sections and darker sections. This is not the lightest. There's like a light kind of almost cream colour that appears on a lot of these stalks. So we'll bring some of that into it. Like that. And some of this and the gold. There's like almost like a stained edge right at the edge of this board. And I don't know whether it's just wear and tear maybe, but what it's done though is you've almost got like one colour right at the edge of the board. Just going to clean that line up by going right the way along and the colour underneath. The cat is behind me climbing the gate, the baby gate that's supposed to keep her in on my side. Unbelievable. And no, I haven't got a video of that. I think what I might have to do is set up some sort of camera trap so I can actually catch her at it, because she's such a she's a pain in the butt. I don't like the fact that this doesn't come down far enough. I feel like this needs to come down a wee bit more. Like that. Yeah, that's a bit better. Right, let's get some darker colour on this one. So we've got a really nice kind of red-brown, which I like to use for this, and it will be shockingly dark. But it really does blend in really well with the oranges. As that comes down. I've kept it quite watery, so it'll be quite translucent, which is what we want. So it won't look quite as drastic once it starts to dry. This section here, it's quite dark as well actually. And this side continues down around. And then we'll bring in some of that shadow. And along here. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of this to the bottom, and this just helps create the start of the shadowing at the bottom of each pumpkin, because otherwise you don't have anything to blend into and it starts looking a little weird. Oh yes, of course. Do you want to do some that's looking a little better. Just darken this section here around the stalk a wee bit. That's looking a little better. Just remember, we don't have the highlights in yet. We're just putting darks in now. Remember to give this video a big thumbs up if you've joined me today. It helps get this video out to more people. And you know, why not? Let's bring Scotland to the masses. Actually, should we do that? Maybe that's a dangerous thing. Right, let's get some of the lemon yellow in. This is a really vibrant yellow, but because the Himi yellows are a bit translucent, it's a little bit harder to get what we want with this. So I'm going to have to really load it up with water to really break that paint and pigment down in order to get what we want. Oh, I think I'm going to have to get another cup of tea at this rate. Right, we've got this line here. We know it's lighter on that side, and it's more lemon yellow on that side there, like that. That's what I mean when I say it is quite a vibrant colour. It's very, very yellow, quite different to the bright orange pumpkin. Same there, coming across there. There is mass of it either side of this dark section, and that's where it's kind of going up and coming back down again. There's a little bit there and some at the back here, but not too much. This is what just kind of helps give the pumpkin some character, is these flashes of colours that just kind of come out in its skin rind. What do you call it? Skin, I suppose? It's probably what I would call it. This line here, there's a slight, it's a little bit there, but it just follows that. And that one, there's a little bit on this side as well, but not much. Just keep that narrow, keep that wider on that side, really bring that out a wee bit. And again, like I said, the yellow seems to be kind of following the lines, just not quite in the same way. And there's more of that yellow just there. Okay, we are definitely getting there. And we need to get this on the other two. This one's a little simpler. It's got less of this vibrant yellow. It's got less of a lot of things though, so. And I've got a neutral colour that I want to add into these, just give them a bit more shadow. I'm just not happy with the contrast there, and just want to be able to get a bit more in. Let's bring this one along here and down. Like that, and then there's a little bit along that line there. But there's a lot of it on there. more of a yellow tinge to it, like that. Okay, now we're going to add some of this to the big yellow one at the back here. It's got a lot of this mixed in with that orange there. There's a little bit of it coming off at the back there. There's probably another segment there. We know there is here, as it joins there. We know there's a lot of it here. I'm just going to load up more, but thicker, so that I can get that in. Bring that in there and bring that down over the top there and down. Same with that one. And where are we? We've got some here. Some there. And some kind of going round like that. Right, let's add the lighter colour to the stalks and start getting them a little bit more highlighted. All the highlighting is on this side, so we're starting at the tip there. And it's just a little bit. Cat is still trying to get through the baby gate. Hi. Oh, no, problem is the cat's on the other side of the baby gate, on the wrong side of the baby gate, so she's already managed to get through. Now she's trying to get back again. Honestly. Right. That's the bit there, and then there's a little bit here. And some there. So you can see now as we start to just get the little details in, that's what starts to bring these to life. And same with this one, it's got a little hook at the top. And then again, this is the lighter side. It's got a little mixed bit there. And there. It's a bit better. This one's got, really, it's got like a almost weird amount of light colour right at the bottom here. So I'm going to mix it in, let it mix with the brown. I'll come back to it and then remix it again, and it should hold that colour then. This is a little wet, so I've got an awful lot on my brush that I didn't mean to have. Oops, that's fine. It's the whole fun part of this, because I can change that out and add dark on top of that once it's a bit more dry. Now we wanted to add a little bit more shading to these pumpkins. I want to warm up. Oh, no you don't. That's what happens when you drop water on it and you're not paying attention. Actually, I'm just going to bring that out a little bit. I want that a little bit more. It's a little too in your face. And that's a nicer colour if I mix it in a wee bit more. That's a bit better. Right, we're going back to this browny, pinky, mauve neutral. And what I want to do is I want to start getting some of this shadow in from this pumpkin here. So it doesn't go all the way, it kind of stops there. And then comes round. Because there's an indent there, it kind of gets a bit stuck. And then it comes down. And then down all the way, there's this nice shadow. It's just picked up, it just kind of slightly follows the lines like that. And then there's a little bit more of it here, where we've got the shadows coming from that indent there. And then where it comes down there, it's lighter that side, and then we have that line there. That's a bit better. Now what I want is the yellow. Yeah, we'll use this yellow first. Just start to bring in the yellow that forms part of the highlights for this one. And just mixing it in lightly with the colour underneath. Oh, there we go. She's managed to get back over the gate. Hello, Ava. Say hi to everybody. Hey? Meow. Is that what you want to say? You got anything else to say? If I pick you up, you'll just walk over the painting, so we're not having that. Are we? You do not invite the studio cat to the painting party, because they tend to cause chaos. Oh dear. What? That kind of edges into this dark bit there. Just actually come down there, so we'll bring it down just there. Give me a yellow. Bit more. And again there. So we're just lightening the bits where it's got a little bit more light than the rest of it. Go back to our mauve and get on with the rest of the shadows for the bottom ones. It's a great colour for the shadows because the shadows aren't really that dark. On these they're just but it's nice to have something that's a bit more neutral, that kind of shows there is something there. A little bit of a line there, just the start of a shadow underneath that you can't quite see yet. Quite a big shadow here actually. And then again, shadow here and back again. And a very small amount there. Not so much at the front here, but definitely a bit more here going that way. Like that. And like I said earlier, there's not really a lot of shadow on this one. And it's in a lot more light than the other two, but we will be able to see the shadow on the ground for it. So we will need to work on that. Shadow here. And again, there's some shadow here. And there. Just putting some of this up here because it just helps bring out that. Stop that paleness that's going on up there. Right, now we will start working with the shadows. They're always a difficult one because they're not essentially grey. They have got a little bit of brown in them, so this is what we're aiming for. There's a bit of blue and a bit of brown. And like I said, the shadows here are very minimal because of the way the light is. So it's deeper where the pumpkin goes in. And a bit more, a little bit darker to the back side of the stem there, which will help. I haven't put any white highlights in yet either, so still got that to go. I don't know what it is with YouTube. The quality on these videos is absolutely terrible, and I don't know why, because you should be able to get decent quality. Right, I'm after a bit of brown. Put it in with this blue. So we got quite a dark shadow here. Another one there. Another one there. And then, like I said, because there's a more key light that way, there is a bit of a tail shadow coming this way to the edge of the board there. It doesn't really go off the board, it just kind of stops. I'll just put some of the dark here on the back edge of this, and this one's got a lot more dark in it that I haven't put in. Very fiery coloured pumpkin, this one. And then this one down here again. It's got a deeper shadow where it gets into the crevice part of the pumpkin before thinning out as it comes round. So it ends up almost with the shadow staying the same, but for where it kind of comes in and out like a bit of a wave. Now we're going to take a little bit, hello, no, go away. She's now begging me for food. I'm like, come on, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm just going to take this up. This is still wet, so I know that as I take this up it will mix. Right, now we've got some dark bits here and there, and into that shadow there. Into that shadow there. We want to reinforce the dark at the back. And there is an ever so slight shadow underneath this board, which we're going to do, just wash that out slightly more so that it's less noticeable. Same with this. Remember, this one's more in the shade than any other one that we have. We're just adding this in. It's a very washed out colour, so it won't add much, but it'll be enough. Right, I want to strengthen this background though, because that usually helps. It's always good to get, I know I put the background down quite faint, and when I put this down it will be darker and it will look a lot nicer. So help if I go a little bit straighter, right? I like to say blind girl problems. Doing straight lines is an impossibility. Also helps me neaten up the edges on the pumpkins as well. Always a good idea. Also thin that stalk out a wee bit just to bring that together a bit more. Just brush that lightly. It just helps smooth out the paint slightly, because it does have a habit of really showing you all the marks. Right, should we make some highlights? So the white I actually have in this palette I've replaced. So I removed the Himi white. It was unbelievably transparent, and this is the Winsor & Newton fine gouache. So it's been ground extra fine. It produces a really nice white, and quite thick once you've started adding water to it. So we know we've got a section there, section there, so we've got a little bit there, a little bit there. And this is where it gets interesting, because we've got a bit there. Now what I do is I put it down quite thick, and then I clean the brush, and then I use the brush wet to pull it off slightly. Which seems almost stupid, because obviously the whole point is that it's not translucent, but actually it's really does work very well. This one I don't want, doesn't seem to have as much as a reflection as the other one, so I'm just going to let that, just blend that into the wet paint, and it will just make a really nice lighter coloured section there and there, and where else? There's one there. Right, let's wash the brush off and then we'll make this look a little better. That's better. And we've got a little bit of highlights going on. Right, I'm going to finish up there and dump this in a corner so it can dry. So let me bring this a little bit closer. You guys can see. At least I hope you guys can see. Maybe I need to bring it that way. Oh, that's better. There you go. Don't know how well that's focusing on that, but hopefully you guys can see it. Otherwise, that's it for today's sketch session. I will see you all soon for some more pumpkins later in the week. Ta-ta for now.